This is Sergeant Phillip, member here at Parkway, and great guy, White County. Phillip, tell us your story.
Sure. Well, first let me thank you all for coming out. It's good to be in company of people that want to help and learn about these situations, and maybe we can work together to make sure this doesn't happen anymore. I'm a little bit put on the spot. I didn't know what to expect tonight, so I didn't know I had 15 minutes to fill. So I'm just going to hurry up and then we'll get to the questions. I think I'll be better in that position. But at the end of the day, almost 3 years ago, I was an active duty Air Force member right here in San Antonio. So my job was a first sergeant is what they call it. Okay? And if you haven't been in the military, it's basically like a branch of the leadership. So if you think of a company, you have a CEO, and then you have, say, a CFO. But we call it the leadership triangle. At the very top of the leadership is your commander. They're in charge, they make the rules. But then at one pillar of the triangle, you have the first sergeant, and at the other end of the triangle is the superintendent. So it's at the top level of leadership in our organization. My job as an enlisted member was to advise a commander who is an officer in the military, who has a very different experience within the military. When you enlist, you're not an officer. You're basically a worker bee. All right? Commissioned officers make the rules and give the orders, enlisted people follow them. So it's my job to advise the commander on what it's like to lead enlisted people. Well, we had a young man, an instructor here at basic military training. He had 50, what I call civilians, and his job is to train them to become airmen in the Air Force. And so, if you know anything about joining the Air Force or basic training, is you take 50 people from all over the United States. They come from all different backgrounds. They look differently. They speak differently. And you put them all together, and you don't get to graduate basic training unless you become a team. You have to work together. You cannot graduate singularly by doing everything by yourself correctly. You have to work together as a team. And only when your team works together will you graduate basic training. So he noticed, and our instructors are very good at what they do, he noticed really quickly that this group of 50 were just not gelling as a team. And he sat them down in kind of a place like this and said, listen, we need to have a chat. You guys aren't getting it. You need to become a team. When you join the Air Force, it's not about you anymore. Where you come from, it's not about where you come from. It's not about where you're going. It's not about your ambitions. It's about protecting the United States of America. And we come from every place. You come from here, and I come from there, and I believe this, and you believe that. That doesn't matter. What really matters is what draws us together, and that's to protect the United States. And he gives an example to these 50. Like, for example, I don't believe in same-sex marriage. But guess what? It doesn't matter, because I'm going to train you all the same anyway. Okay? And he was trying to give an example of how, guess what? Even a biblical truth like that, I'm not going to let what I believe get in the way of making sure that I train you for the defense of this nation. Now, one trainee was offended by that. Kicked off a big investigation. My commander at the time, now mind you, I had just joined this unit. I had just got back from my second deployment overseas. Come to find my old commander, who I was really, really close with, leaving. Had a new commander was introduced, and in her introduction, introduced herself to our organization as an open lesbian. Introduced her partner or whatever you have. And so, here we have an open lesbian commander who's upset by what this gentleman said in his training course, and wanted to punish him. Now, I get involved because she wants to know my advice. My advice to my commander is, there is nothing to punish. He gave an opinion, and there's no discrimination. And she absolutely believed there was discrimination. that he would say, I don't believe in same-sex marriage, but I'm training you anyway. And I was like, how is that discrimination? That's not discrimination. If he would have said, because I believe this and you don't believe this, I'm training you different. You can't be in my organization. That's discrimination. So anyway, my commander was perplexed on how I could not see this as discrimination. And when I wouldn't, we had a meeting. She called me in very upset. One morning in my office, as soon as I walked in, she said, listen, you and I are not on the same page, and if we don't get on the same page, you're going to find somewhere else to work. So instantly I knew this was one of those meetings that you just don't want to be involved in. And again, we wrestled with this young man. Now, what you have to understand is at the time of this instructor is we have just gone through the largest sexual assault scandal in BMT's history. Okay? That happened right in my unit. I was the guy that interviewed the very first sexual assault victim in basic military training. And so there was a lot of pressure to make sure that our instructors were doing the things that they should be doing in accordance with the rules. And what I knew is that if this guy was going to get in trouble for this, that his career in basic training, maybe in the Air Force, was in jeopardy by just this one incident. And so I knew that I had to stand firm for at least 10. And she kept pushing and pushing, and when I would not relent and say that what this guy was doing was wrong, because it could have been easy to be like, yeah, just write him some paperwork, push him off somewhere, and let it go. And you know, likely if I'd have done that, I'd still be in the Air Force. But I'll tell you, I think I would have beat myself up for it. But anyway, the commander, she was just not happy. And then it came to a point where she backed me in the corner and she said, listen, she wanted to know my position on it. Okay. She forced me into a corner, backed me into a corner and said, Sergeant, isn't it true? And I have to know, she actually said this, I have to know, as my first sergeant, can you see discrimination when it's apparent? So isn't it true, if you speak about same-sex marriage or homosexuality, that is in fact discrimination? And when she backed me in the corner, listen, I've been in the service for 20 years. I'm a senior master sergeant. I've been on the first sergeant council. I know exactly where this is going, right? And so clearly I see what's happening to this young guy that answers a question or answers something that the commander doesn't like. So I know if I say, yes ma'am, I don't believe it, I'm for biblical truth and marriage, I know that's going to lead to trouble. And so I hedged. I honestly hedged. And I was like, listen, I can't answer the question the way you want me to. I have a religious belief. It's just not going to allow me to answer that question. So let's leave it at that. And even that wasn't good enough. So she got all upset. And I said, clearly you're upset. What is it you want me to do? I can't answer this question. How do you want to play this? I said, you want me out of here? You want me to be gone? You want me on leave? Yes, I do. Got it. Roger that. You're the boss. You call the shots. Went straight to my office, put in the paperwork, and I went home. No, I didn't go home, actually. I called by. Yes, I went to see, in the Air Force, no matter what level you're at, there's always a higher level. So I said, I need to schedule a meeting with the higher level and let them know that I just got fired. So I did. I went to my higher ups and I said, listen, this is wrong. How can I get fired for simply advising my commander? And why is it that I have to give my position on this topic? And why is it you're not going to do anything about it? And at every level that I went in my chain of command, they'd shut it. Hold on one sec, sir. Make sure that door's shut because we don't want to have this side there. And everybody would say, sir, you've got a great career. You're a senior master sergeant. You're going to be a chief master sergeant. This is going to be the highest enlisted rank. You're going to go on and do great things. Just eat this one You got an assignment coming up, you're going to go over to Wilford Hall, and you're going to run a laboratory, and it's going to be great. Just go over there, just let this go. Wait a minute. Can't let it go. First of all, it's not the right thing to do. Second of all, the Air Force core values integrity first. What integrity would I have if I wouldn't? You know, my job is, for starting, you know, when somebody in my unit did something that was wrong, I would fight hard to make sure that they were corrected. Why would I not fight just as hard with the guy who did something that wasn't wrong? Why wouldn't I fight just as hard with them? And so, at the end of the day, I got fired. Like I told you, I went to chain of command, and there was nobody interested in helping me. And so, one day I reached out to a private organization here in Texas. It's called the First Liberty Institute. Called an attorney over there and said, what can we do? And in short order, it was out in the news, and life was turned upside down. And I'll tell you what, it went against everything in my nature to do that. I'm introverted, I don't want to get in front of talking to people. If I could sit in a closet with anybody ever, I could deal with that. And I don't know what else I can say.
Tell them, because I like this part of the story, what turns you to make a stand? This is part of what them here.
Your kids.
Yes, that's what he's getting me. So Pastor Greg and I, we've done a lot of this stuff, so he knows my story. But, you know, the truth is, and like I told you, I hedged to my commander. Listen, I don't want to do this. And as this was going on, and as I was going to my higher ups, I'm talking to my wife, and, well, I'm complaining to my wife. Can you believe this happened to me? I'm deployed, I got medals on my chest, I have a great career, I have an impeccable reputation. I'm the guy that really uncovered this DOT stuff. You know, they know I'm good. Why is this going on? And we're sitting at the dinner, and we're having a Bible study with my boys, and we're talking about, that Ephesians 5 about standing up and pushing back when things are wrong. And, in the background, there's this story that's on the news, and it's talking about a young person somewhere that was on a bus, and they were getting beaten, and nobody on the bus, not the bus driver, not the other kids, nobody put a stop to this, and this young child was beaten. And so one of my sons says, well, is that an example? Would you have us intervene in that? Is that what you're talking about? And I said, yes, absolutely. And then the other son turns to me, and I think this is kind of, the Holy Spirit kind of poking me right in the ribs a little bit. My one son says, listen, I hear what you're telling Mom, and what are you going to do about it? You're sitting here teaching us about standing up, and I hear you going through this situation. What are you going to do about it? And it's at that point I'm like, all right. You're going to call me out. And really, that's exactly what I need, It's kind of like I brought a kid home.
I got a role in too.
The instructor because
Can you tell us where things stand now?
So we pushed back, Liberty Institute pushed back. One of the hardest things I will tell you about going through this situation is when I first went through this situation, when I brought it to the media, I was like, this is a no-brainer. Everybody's going to see right through the ridiculousness of it. In a couple of minutes, it'll be over, and it'll all go back to normal and be fixed. And boy, was I wrong. Okay? And when I brought it to it, I was really worried about what the outcome would be. But what I learned through the process is it's not about the outcome. It's about overcoming, right? It's about the process, the power and peace of the process. And tell you, I remember being the attorneys would be mad because they never liked for you to talk about what you talk about with attorneys. I remember talking to my attorney, we were like, listen, nothing short of the Air Force on a stage saying, sorry, we messed this up, this is going to be adequate for this. We were going to kick in some teeth and until they apologize. And I'll tell you what, the Air Force came out, as soon as it hit the public, man, they went quiet. Okay, they went quiet. And they conducted an investigation. They said, hey, they told the public, hey, through news media, we're going to do an investigation. We're going to look into what he said. They showed up, I got a call from an 06 colonel and said, hey, we want to investigate. Come in and tell us your story. So I came in, and as soon as I walked in, they said, I'm glad you're here. And they read me my rights. They said, you're now under investigation because we think you're lying. You fabricated the whole thing. And so they did this big investigation. They came out with a press release that says, you know what? He wasn't lying. He actually believes it, but it didn't happen. And I kid you. And they said, and otherwise he's clear. Now, that's what they told the media. Now, I got a separate letter from the same commander that said, we've done an investigation and we've looked at it, and I agree with the investigation, you did nothing wrong. That was the letter I got. The letter that went to the media was basically, he's not technically a liar, he just doesn't know what he's talking about.
So you're no longer in the army?
So, at the end of the day, we pushed back. We pushed back against that agenda, and it looked for a long time that it looked like that I was going to end up going to court. We actually looked forward to it. My attorney was like, all right, good. If we go to court, we get them on cross-examination, we get depositions, we're going to just annihilate these guys. But we pushed back. So charges against me were dropped. Essentially, I was able to start it. I went to a new unit. It's funny, and I was telling General Boykin when he was here, he was getting ready for my retirement ceremony, and he was like, tell me, you sent me all your stuff, and one of the things that struck me, he was like, so you got fired from this unit, and then you went to a new unit, and in the Air Force, they do these quarterly awards, right? NCO of the quarter, senior NCO of the quarter. I was a senior NCO. I joined this new unit, and 3 months later, I was the senior NCO of the quarter for that new unit. It was the top NCO of that next unit. And he said, so while this was going on, while you were fighting the Air Force, in this next unit, you became the top NCO in the very quarter that you went. Yes, I did. So, at the end of the day, I don't even know where I was going with that anymore.
You did great when you were 15, by the way.
Oh, I did?
Yeah!
Oh, I'm sorry.
No, that's not what I meant. I meant, you said, how am I going to fill it? You were awesome.
One biblical thing
Yeah.
you've learned. Something you've learned that you only would have learned from the fire.
I think I've learned a couple things. Like I was saying, I think that the most thing that I learned biblically is that it's really not, is that obedience and acting within God's will. And I saw this on Facebook a while ago, and it just struck a chord with me. But we kind of believe in, sometimes in Christianity, we believe in this idea that when we get it all right, that things become all roses and rainbows and butterflies. And I certainly used to think that. I believe along those lines. But what I learned through all this is that when you're obedient to God's will, it brings the obstacles. Right? And that's the power in this, is that there was a level of peace throughout this in my own personal life, and my wife can talk about this, is that because when you're involved and you have these, is when you see God unfolding. right? If you're a baseball player, you're made to play baseball, and you get that feeling like when you're playing baseball that you're doing what you're doing. So it just felt like, for me, that in the process of going through this trial and tribulation, that I was doing what I was designed to do.
Phil, question?
Yes.
I don't know, I used to be German, so there's parts of the story that are still missing for me.
Okay.
So you were
I only get 15 minutes.
you were not forced out. You were so you transferred. You transferred, and then you subsequently retired on your own. Is that right?
That's right.
Okay. Now, what happened? This is a lesbian, right? What happened to her?
So,
Did you call her the what? She's general now?
no, she went on. She was actually a major at the time. She was a lieutenant colonel select.
Can we have her name?
It's Colonel Valenzuela. One of the things that I want to say from the start is that when this started, this is 3 years old, by the way, is this has nothing to do with homosexuality. It has nothing to do with it. It has everything to do with religious freedom. Does a member of my unit have the ability to believe in biblical truth?
Yeah.
Is he allowed to talk about it?
Amen.
Okay, now the story is compelling because there's a homosexual commander, but really that has nothing to do with it. Okay, the story is I don't get to believe the way I want to believe and have a job in that unit.
Why wasn't she investigated?
Well, she wasn't part of the investigation. She was clear. So
She lied.
But you took no adverse action, but she did. So there is no discrimination on your part, but there was on her part.
Well, I feel that there was. I believe, and that's what we pushed back. My attorneys and I, we filed what they call we went to the EO, Equal Opportunity Organization. We filed a complaint on religious discrimination. Okay, we did that. That ran parallel with this investigation, and that came back and they said it had nothing to do with religious freedom because we didn't talk about religion. It wasn't good enough that I said I have a religious belief, but we didn't actually get into specifics. I kid you not. And you know what? The whole thing just drives me crazy because I'll tell you, with my attorneys, the Air Force wouldn't even give us a copy of the investigation. We had to FOIA a copy of the investigation just to know how we could defend ourselves. And when we got it from the FOIA, it was redacted.
Oh, God.
Okay? So I didn't even know who said what, when say, I couldn't tell you. But I do know we have what we call an MFR. So the day that meeting happened, that I went out and said I was fired because of this. Right? Now, mind you, the Air Force said this didn't happen. There's an MFR, and the very first line of this MFR says, and it was written, there was only 3 people in that room. It was me, the commander that fired me, and another major. In the very first line, this major wrote an MFR, basically what is a letter stating what happened at that meeting. And the very first line is the whole reason why we had this meeting is the commander and I don't want Sergeant Monk as our first sergeant anymore. And then the Air Force said I wasn't fired. Now I lied about saying I was fired.
Wait a minute, you were fired. All the releases were firing you. Didn't that come out?
Well,
He did not agree with the Wikipedia definition.
yeah, literally they brought up Wikipedia. The commander said, bring up Wikipedia, read them off with discrimination. I was like, all right, I'm completely But I know it's nuts, but here, what you have to understand is, in order to fire me officially, there are steps that they have to go through to officially fire me. Okay? None of those official steps happen. They technically fire me.
But they still had an adverse impact by sending you on leave.
I made that case, but the investigation, the IG, they said, well, he went on leave, so nothing happened. He went to a new unit, nothing happened. He got a medal, nothing happened. He got a performance report, nothing happened. And of course, I could never promote again. And so they said, nothing happened.
No injury.
There was no injury. So he's lying. He was never fired because we have no record of officially being fired.